I'd like to call the meeting to order for Monday, May 2nd, 2022. Please rise for the pledge. Alderwoman Mary Claire Hopper will lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of our community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Next item on the agenda, roll call. Please show all present, but Megan Gilbert, we do have enough to conduct the meeting. Next item, be approval of minutes. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from April 18th.
So moved.
Motion from James Baltimore. Is there a second? Second from Coach Cole. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Okay, new business. Under new business, we have two public hearings. The first one, ordinance BB 705, an ordinance to amend the Dyersburg municipal zoning map to rezone property near Highway 51 and Brewer Road from planned business to B2 General Trade and Business District. The second public hearing is ordinance BB 706, an ordinance to amend the text to the Dyersburg municipal zoning ordinance to adopt new procedures for zoning amendment applications. Both of these were heard by the Dyersburg Planning Commission. They were both passed. It was advertised in the paper. Copy of that notice is in your agenda. Also, the property to be rezoned. Placard was placed on that so people would know. We'll take these one at a time. The first one for the rezoning. I entertain a motion to approve this in a second, and we can discuss it.
So move on that one.
I have a motion from Mr. Baltimore for the rezoning for ordinance BB 705. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mary Claire Hopper. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. The next public hearing is ordinance BB 706. That's an ordinance to amend the text to the Dyersburg Municipal Zoning Ordinance. As I stated earlier, it did go before the Planning Commission. It was passed. It was publicized in the paper. Notice was given at the last meeting that we're going to have this. And at this time, I'd entertain a motion and a second to allow us to discuss it. Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Baltimore. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ricky Hammond. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, City of Dyersburg Annual Financial Report, June 30, 2021. Each of you, I think, have gotten your report. And at this time, I'd call on Ms. Chloe Humphrey from Cowart, Reese, and Sargent to go over the audit. Ms. Chloe.
Hey. I think it's been a year or two since I've been able to come present live to you, so I'm glad to be back and I see some familiar faces. So I understand that y'all were able to get this report sometime last week or before that, so you had a little time to look at it and digest it, and had a couple, I think Ms. Webb was able to talk to a member of our staff today with some questions that she had. Otherwise, I have not gotten any particular questions, so I'm just going to kind of go through a general run-of-the-mill overview of the work that we were able to do with the city this year. One thing I want to be sure and discuss is our I feel like we've weathered a hurricane with the city with the change in the software that we experienced the year before. So they were going through that while we were there in the audit last year, and we had a great experience this year. I mean, we just worked very closely with them to try to streamline as much as we could in the way that they, are able to extract reports out of that system, and we do feel like it's given us better information and more readily available for the audit purposes. So that's, it's just one of those things you got to go through when you make that kind of change. So I definitely want to applaud the staff. We work very closely with them. We have 4 weeks of scheduled field work throughout the year, so it is a huge time-consuming piece of what they do at City Hall and what Steve is taking care of over there and him and his staff. So I just want to bring that up and say that they are fantastic to work with. They are timely. We take precedence when they're there, and they get us everything we need to do our job, and it makes it a pleasure to work with the city of Dyersburg. So our report that unfortunately continues to get longer this year. One of the things that we changed right off the bat was this year we took on the responsibility of actually compiling the financial statements. Several of you may have been a part of that decision early on, but one of the things that we felt was a huge burden on Steve was the timing of this and how he's so busy trying to get new budget ready for, to continue operations. And this was just such a, draining process on him. It's a huge job. And we were always, we always worked very closely with him, but we were able to take on that responsibility this year. And I do feel like that, that was pretty, it was an easy transition, basically. He worked with us very closely to help us, get us any tools that he was using, and we incorporated them into our software. So I definitely see that being a plus and something that will continue to save time as we move into the future. So right off the bat, there is a independent auditor's report in here on page 2. Not a lot different in there than what you've seen in the past. We are issuing an unqualified opinion for the city of Dyersburg, which just means that based on our work and the materiality thresholds that we've established on a risk-based audit, that these financial statements are a fair presentation of the health of the city. Now, the management's discussion and analysis starts on page 5, and the financial highlights portion at the top is something that I'd just like to hit real quick because it gives you a good comparison, just a high-level overview of what these financial statements tell us. So the city's net position at June 30, 21, which is government-wide, this is all of the funds of the city. The net position was $115 million. Of this amount, $12 million is unrestricted and able to meet the city's ongoing operations. The city's total net position increased by $8.6 million. And the governmental funds reported combined ending fund balances of $16 million, of which $5.2 million is unassigned and available for the use of the city's discretion. Governmental fund balances increased by $5.3 million. And during the fiscal year ended, we were able to decrease our total notes from direct borrowings and bonds payable by $2 million. So those are just some like I said, some high-level overview of the big numbers on the financial statements. On page 8, you've got a breakdown right there, prior year and current year, aggregated totals right there, where you can see the increases and decreases there. One of the big highlights that I see in as far as a change from prior year to this year is your total unrestricted net position. So it's that last line before the very bottom total net position. It was 5.4, and you can see it's in brackets. But we have chipped away quite a bit. We've increased that basically since prior year, where it was $11 million. Let's see. Okay, on page 13, kind of that second paragraph right there, this discussed the governmental funds. So this breaks it down not from a government-wide perspective, but just the city's governmental fund operations. So you leave out all the proprietary funds, which is your water and sewer, gas, sanitation, and electric, excuse me. So at the end of the current fiscal year, we've got combined ending fund balances of $16 million, an increase of $5.3 million over the prior year. Okay. One of the things that I know I always get a question about is your pension, the city's pension liability. That's because that's a big number on the financial statements. So I kind of want to touch on that just a minute. If I can direct you to page 87. It should be where, kind of middle of the page there, it starts the city of Dyersburg's pension plan note disclosure. And so this part of the disclosure, what you will find if you read this report in its entirety, is there are 3 different plans associated with the school system, a plan associated with the electric system, and then the city itself has their own pension liability. So this portion of the report for the next 3 pages relates specifically to the city of Dyersburg pension plan. One thing, it gives a detail of how many participants, active and inactive, that we have. But one thing I think is very important to note is on page 89, under the paragraph with the discount rate associated with it, kind of halfway through that, discusses how the actuarial companies estimate the liability. And while I'm not an actuary at all by any means, we definitely rely on specialists to give us these numbers. But one conclusion that they have given us is that based on those assumptions that they applied in this year, the pensions plan's fiduciary net position was projected to be available to make all projected future benefit payments of current plan members through June 30th, 2066. So as we sit right now, if, Lord forbid the sky doesn't fall, we should be able to take care of the pension liability if it phases out over time. So, as the actuaries project. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know that's been of some concern over recent years.
Chloe, can I make a comment about that?
Sure.
So this board wasn't here, I think, when all this started, when the state passed the Defined Pension Benefit Act of 2014. Prior to that, the city of Dyersburg was not subject to the ERISA laws about retirement plans, which means it didn't have to be fully funded, right? So the state changed the plans because there were several municipalities and cooperatives throughout the state that were headed in the wrong direction, okay? So the city took the initiative at that time, based on the state law, to address that situation. Everybody knows the rest of the story, okay? So I am very proud of what the city has done, both the previous board and this board. And what I tell people, there was some stuff going around several years ago that people weren't going to get their retirement money. It's going to be worth pennies on a dollar. I heard it in meetings with former elected officials. Simply was not true, okay? So this report tonight reflects what we did as a city with the previous board and this board too, to make sure this plan is solid and whole and folks will get their retirement. And I tell everybody, every employee of the city of Dyersburg that is retired has received their full pension benefit, even when all this was going on and going forward. So I just want to make sure we all understand that, okay? Thank you.
Yes, that's very accurate, and I appreciate your background on that as well. There are a couple more schedules in the back that kind of give you some time, a timeline of the activity in the pension liability. So again, there's schedules for each plan of the school, each plan of the or the plan for the electric department or electric company, and then I'm gonna get to the one that's the city.
Where you said this? Where you said you find that at?
Should be page 116. Page 116, these schedules are being built out to cover 10 years worth of information. And like the Mayor said, we implemented this in 2014. So you'll see back to 2014 worth of information here. One of the things you can see right from the get-go is in 2014, we had an actuarially determined contribution, which means that that's what the actuary said we should have invested in the plan at the implementation of the laws that were just discussed. I mean, you can tell the difference. This year, we are within that funding determination. It's just increased, year over year. And then I skipped the page before that. Page 115 is another schedule that runs across several years that will show you how this plan has changed. So I know that's those are some large numbers there, and there's a lot happening with the deferred inflows and outflows that are related to the actuarial assumptions that we apply from year to year. But I definitely think that we are on the right track with that plan, and that the city is in good financial shape. So there are many schedules in this report, but a lot of times, y'all have seen the budgets, you've seen the actuals at this point. So I definitely invite you to ask me any questions as soon as I get done. But one of the main things that a lot of people want to know when you issue an audit report is, are there any findings? So if you'll look on page 156, we do have one finding this year, and I want to kind of talk about it for just a minute. If you'll kind of toward the bottom of that page, you'll see the 2021-001. That's where we discuss the finding. It says that the city expended more than budgeted appropriations by major appropriation category in the Communication Services Fund, the Internal Service Fund, and the TIP Fund. So what the main takeaway there for me is the Communication Services Fund and the Internal Service Fund. We have once again, I think this happened either last year or the year before, but well, I guess I can see. Yeah, it was last year. We make, after the audit adjustments have been posted, a calculation is made to allocate internal service funds. So what happens is at the end of the year, after all of our adjustments get made, the last piece of that process is to make a journal entry based on the activity in those internal service funds. What's happened is when we make that entry, it's causing these funds to be over budget. So I talked to Mayor Holden a little bit about this, just because I'd like to take a proactive approach, since we're obviously having a little struggle here trying to figure out what that is, to work with Steve and just figure out a way to better budget that. I feel like between he and I both, we put our heads together, I think we can come within a much closer margin here, because we're just throwing them over. That's, we can hedge against that, I think, a little better. So that's
gonna be kind of hard to do, isn't it?
It's a little complicated, I think, but if we take the approach that we won't make any other journal entries outside of the ones that we typically make, that we don't run up on any big problems, or not necessarily problems, but just big adjustments, I think we can get closer. I'd like to think so. Again, it's worth a shot. It's worth a shot to see if we can't help, just get information together so that he can better project that number. So, but that is the one finding this year. Can I answer any specific questions? There are schedules in here with budget to actual comparisons for every fund that the city operates. I believe there's 11 now in total. I highly recommend, if you haven't done so already, please read over the management's discussion and analysis. It does give you a very understandable, layman's term description of what's happening with the financial statements and how they're broken out. And if you want any more detail on the schools piece or the electric piece, those are separately issued reports that we combine into this. So there'll be more information about those funds provided in those reports. So,
Any questions of Chloe? Anybody? We handed these audit books out probably, 3 weeks ago, I think, to the Alderman.
Are you saying that we are financially stable?
yes, sir. And I'm also saying that you've had a very good year too in substantiating that fund balance as well, and decreasing the city's debt.
And I think there's some discussion here about our bond rating also, that the bond rating is good for the city of Dyersburg, which affects our ability to borrow money at a cheaper interest rate. So that's very important to us as a city as well going forward.
Great, that's great.
Any questions of Chloe? It's easy, easy.
Too bad.
All right.
I do invite y'all to ask me any questions throughout the year too. As you've got anything that comes up, I'll be glad to respond to you. They've got my email.
All right.
number.
I sent everybody your email address, so they do have that. So thank you for the report, for the work that you've done. Also to Steve Anderson in the back. Steve does an outstanding job as our city treasurer, and he is on top of things. I am thankful that we have Steve. He is a valuable person, as all people are, of the city of Dyersburg, but we appreciate him, especially at this time and throughout the year, to make sure that we're doing things properly and correctly and spending our money like we need to spend it. So, any questions of Chloe? Anybody? All right, thank you, Chloe. Appreciate it very much. Next item on the agenda, Dyersburg Fire Department 2021 Annual Report, Chief Brett Sipes. I think that report was included in your packet as well, Chief Sipes.
I think everybody got a copy of it, but I was just gonna hit some highlights. So we're a ISO Class 2, still the ISO Class 2. I think we're up for reevaluation in about 2 years. So this year, our 2021 call volume, we had 3,390 total calls. That's up 5.28% increase from last year. Of those calls, 715 were fire related, and 2,675 was EMS related. We had 9 personnel that contracted COVID in 21. We administered 33 doses of Narcan. We had training. Our guys logged over 7,700 hours of training this year. And some few highlights in our fire inspection and fire prevention program. We got 2 guys, 2 fire inspectors, and a couple that do fire prevention. But they completed 2,043 inspections and over 75 plus commercial plans reviews. And we conducted 46 fire drills in schools, issued 183 burn permits, and installed 441 smoke alarms. At the end of 21, we had 6 open positions in the fire department. And as of today, we ended up having 9, and we filled 8, and we got another one that's going to start at the end of the week. So we should be fully staffed for the first time in a while at the end of the week.
Chief, are these EMTs, or are they going to get it within a year? How many?
4 of the ones we've hired are in EMT school now. They'll be getting out at the end of May. 5 of them will have to start in August and get out in December.
Good news, Chief.
Very good news. I just highlight a little bit of our vehicle fleet. I know they see it in there. Our oldest vehicle is a 1986 ladder truck. It's 36 years old this year. We have a 1994 reserve pumper we use as a reserve. It's 28 years old. We have a 1998 pumper. We would use it as a reserve, but it's had a lot of pump problems. I think it's going to cost around $20,000 to fix it, so we've elected not to fix it. And then we got a 206 ladder truck that's 16-year-old and a pumper that's 16-year-old. All the reason I mention those numbers is we have a MTAS study done. He was here about 2-3 weeks ago. Y'all should get a report before long, probably within a month. And it's going to be on there because NFPA says they're not greater than 15 years old, so it's going to let you aware of it. But that's kind of the highlights of our annual report. Anybody got any questions about it?
Any questions?
I'd like to compliment you on one thing. You went out and you hired those employees, and we appreciate it. And to reflect the community, you hired people who reflect the whole community. And thank
I think we got 9 good ones that's gonna serve the city well.
Any questions of the chief? Let me mention one thing on page 15 at the bottom that goes along with the ISO rating that you discussed, chief. Very last paragraph says the city of Dyersburg is now in the top 4.7% of the 41,177 communities surveyed in the U.S. and the top 4.5% in Tennessee. Nationwide, Dyersburg is one of 1,597 communities surveyed that received a Class 2 rating. There are only 348 in the U.S. with a Class 1 rating. So thank you, Chief, for that, and your crew and your folks in the Water Department and all those factors that go into establishing an ISO rating, which is very important to our community. So thank you very much.
Communications is part of it too.
That's right, yeah.
Well, the age of these trucks, when will that start affecting our ISO rating, you think?
They don't, ISO really don't look at the age. NFPA kind of regulates the age. ISO, if it runs and gets there, they're good with it. So, you got,
I'm trying to figure out, who is this fellow in the airplane? Is that you flying around?
oh, I don't fly airplanes unless it's commercial jet.
Oh,
And I don't know who was in the basket.
You
You
don't know
asked me
who's in
that
it?
earlier.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
what I was
exactly
talking about.
who was in there.
yeah. I thought maybe one of our city, was it a city employee, or do you know? Or
Oh,
you-
I don't know.
you don't know?
We do have I know we got one pilot over there. Maybe a couple.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Chief, thank you. Thank you very much.
Chief.
Appreciate what you do. All right, next item on the agenda, Street and Sanitation Committee meeting minutes, April 19th, 2022. Chairwoman Mary Claire Hopper.
Thank you. We had a street and sanitation meeting on Tuesday, April 19th. I called the meeting to order. Greg Wilson with the City of Dyersburg Sanitation Department gave an update of the city's transition to curbside service coming soon. Mr. Wilson noted that we have received the new trucks from River City Hydraulics, and the residential cans for customers will arrive in July. Mayor Holden mentioned that there are still some items to be resolved prior to making the change to curbside service. Mayor Holden noted that the text amendment to the current ordinance and an approved agreement for handicap or disabled customers would need to be passed. There will also need to be a fee for additional cans and can replacements. These items all need to be approved by the board and changes made in our ordinance and schedule for fees. With no further discussion, the meeting was adjourned.
Okay, any questions about that? And we're doing all those items right now. The ordinance, the medical part of that, and the other things we talked about. Any questions? Okay, bids. There are no bids tonight. Next item on the agenda will be communication, or report from Alderman, Mr. Baltimore.
I want to compliment the police department. I feel like they're really doing a good job. And we've had several shootings in our communities, and I thank them for the job that they do trying to make our communities safe. And Steve, job well done. Because that's a big job what you have. We appreciate the job that you do. And we just thank you so much.
Both Steves in the back, right?
Yeah, both Steve.
Both Steves. All right, thank you. Edward? Coach Cole? Ricky?
No report.
Mary Claire?
I would like to go on record as on a personal level that as a recovering school teacher, I would like to say that I am very disappointed in what has happened to Mr. Sanders at the middle school. I do not know him personally. I assume my children have had him in class. I do not know him, but I have seen him at work in that cafeteria over an extended period of time. That is a very hard job, and I can only imagine what he was going through when the fight broke out numerous times, apparently. That's what I've been told. But I would like to say that I'm disappointed in the way things have turned out. And that's all.
Okay. Dennis?
No report.
Ms. Vanetta?
I'm going to ask that at the Finance Committee that we meet as we close in on the end of the finance year. I just think that maybe meeting with Steve and touching base and seeing where we are, maybe we can head off another finding for next year, just kind of touching base and having a moment to see where we stand with expenditures versus what we've budgeted.
Okay, thank you, we can do that.
Mayor, can I touch a little bit on what Mayor Claire said?
Sure.
Me and her talked a while today about this. I've talked to the chief, talked to numerous individuals about this, and it's an unfortunate incident all the way around. And it's given our city a negative light. And my hope and prayer is that everything is handled the way it should be. I've got all the confidence in the world in our police department, our judicial system, and I hope everything turns out the way that it should turn out, and that we are not caving into any kind of social media or anything like that. Let the system play out and see what happens. I know there's a lot of hard feelings right now in this city, but you know what Dyersburg's best at is coming together when we have a crisis, and I think that's what this is. It's unfortunate a man's been in system for 37 years, and I'm pretty sure this is not the first altercation he's had. I don't know why he would change things now, but let's just hope that everything pans out through the system, and our city. I mean, we got great teachers, and you know, a great school system. I mean, we're award-winning school system, and you know, I have 2 daughters that teach. I have family members in law enforcement, and we've got to rally. We've got to rally around one another, and hope that everything just turns out the way that it's supposed to turn out. That's all I got, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Let me mention 2 or 3 things. First, I'd like to thank the street department and the sanitation department. We had our cleanup events every Saturday the month of April, Okina Park, Slate Moore Field, Future City, Bruce, and then this past Saturday at the fairgrounds, along with TDEC, Department of Conservation and Environment, for their Hazardous Household Waste Day. So I'd like to thank those folks that worked on Saturdays and what they did for that. Let me mention the cookout for Sherry Butler. Everybody knows Sherry Butler is battling pancreatic cancer. She works at the EOC of the city of Dyersburg. Has been an employee for a long time. So the cookout this Friday at the Safe Room downtown across from Fire Department number 1. Hope you will support that. This Thursday is the National Day of Prayers. First time we'll be able to gather in 2 years because of the pandemic. Looking forward to gathering at First Baptist Church this Thursday morning at 6:30 a.m. for breakfast, and there will be a list of folks there that are praying for different things in our community. I want to make you aware of that. Unemployment rate was sent out in your packet. January for Dyersburg 4.0, February 3.5, and March was at 3.2. So we're happy about those numbers and the positive trend in unemployment rates for the city of Dyersburg. One other thing I want to mention, I handed out 2 other things. The code enforcement report was handed out for the month of April. You have that. I won't go over those individual numbers, but those guys continue to work hard to clean up our community. And one more thing I want to mention about the sales tax collections. A lot of people don't realize how much sales tax is collected in the city of Dyersburg. So for the first 3 quarters of our budget year, which is July 2021 through March of 2022, our sales tax collections in the city of Dyersburg have increased from, in round numbers, $10 million, almost $10.1 million, to $11.2 million. That's for the first 3 quarters of our budget year. That's 9 months. That's an increase of $1.2 million in the first 3 quarters, or 12.3%. We've had actually 15 consecutive quarters of sales tax growth in our community. And not a lot of communities can say that, but we're thankful for the work that everybody does. The Planning Commission, those that bring business opportunities to our community, and the planning and code staff that work hard to make sure that happens, and this board for doing things to be proactive, as well as the chamber. So just want to bring that to your attention. We'll probably finish the year off at about $15 million in sales tax collection. That does a lot of good for both the city and the county as well. So I want to bring that to your attention also. Thank you. We're adjourned.